Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service here today to present the full moon chart for February 27th, 2021. We're going to use Washington, D.C. as our place for the chart. It is the capital of the country, but I want you to be alerted that if you happen to live somewhere else, you will want to erect the full moon chart for your area so that you can play with the houses, as we'll be doing in our chart in a few minutes. So first I want to say thank you for being here, allowing me into your life, and watching this video, whoever you are. Please like, share, even comment. I'd love to hear from you. A special thank you to those of you who subscribe. And with all of that said, let's jump into this chart and see what we can find on this Janus chart. Now, so we should be on the chart. I've been having a little bit of difficulties today. The chart features, as we know, the 8 degrees sun and moon in Pisces and Virgo. But what I found most interesting in this chart, and the reason why I want to do a little house play, even though I know we don't all live in the same area. But again, this is for educational reasons. So it's about learning a lesson. And I want to teach this lesson. So we are looking at an 8th house moon that goes up against woe of things in the 2nd house. And I do say it like that. I want you to note that because there are 3 in each sign, they're not considered a stellium. But if you notice, that's an incredible amount of energy in that 2nd house. So here we have the house of I'm worth, I own, and definitely how we are as people ethically. Okay, so this is looking at the 2nd house. This is a lot of energy playing up against our debts or our combined resources. Okay, so this again is playing out in Washington. I'm not doing a political video, but it is playing out in Washington with regards to our stimulus checks. So I do want to point that out because I can, and it is an example of astrology in action. As I sip my tea, I apologize. The 2nd house going up against the 8th house is that sense of what am I worth and what can my company pay me? Also, it can be how much money am I bringing in and how much is going out for debt. So that would be really prime for people who are living in this area where they generally would have this 2nd house. Okay. The chart features a couple of things, okay? I want to point out how, first of all of this is pretty far apart. Yes, there could be charts where they are really considered a conjunction, but it would be up to an astrologer if they would want to read that as such. Now, in the case of Saturn to Mercury, I'm more inclined to go with that because Mercury moves so quickly. And to catch a whip of it with a slower moving planet, I think it could be a factor. And they are 5 degrees apart. And I believe that, or a little less than 5 degrees apart, that you could go that wide. Okay. It's much better if it were personal, if it were about 2.5 degrees. But at 5 degrees for this kind of a chart, I think is okay. Now, would I go the full 8 degrees to Jupiter? That's debatable. That's a whole, if I were studying a whole mundane thing on Jupiter and Saturn, maybe I would look at that 8 degrees, but honestly, I'm not in our case because each of these are slower than the personal planets. So I'm not including that. It is a similar energy, and it's going to play in somewhere else. I'm going to show you somewhere else that plays as a factor. The same is going to hold true down here. I'm not so sure I want to say any of these are conjunctions because they're actually really far apart. Okay? But with the Sun and Venus in the second house, I do believe there's an incredible amount of thought being put on money, finances, and value. Are you being valued in who you are? You could get $1,000,000, but if you are not being valued and respected, your soul will die and you won't be able to remain anyway. Your health will go bad. So there is that going on. And the fact that we have a square, and I am going to go with a square on this, between, because it's 4 degrees. Okay, I think it's, yeah, a little over 4, but it's, yeah, look at that. So that's enough for a square. And again, in this kind of chart. So I would say to you, yeah, because we're still social distancing, it means that when you are trying to get jobs done, or if you run into a problem, the people that you're going to try to make contact with, their workers are working remotely. So nothing's quite up to snuff. There have been a lot of problems as a result that have resulted in lack of communication and a lot of other Neptunian type misadventures, and particularly those involving money. So, of course, people want that played out because, you know, even though this here is at 8 degrees, okay, which really is about an 8-degree difference, we are talking about the moon, which moves really, really fast. So it's not out of the picture. It's really far away from this 20, yes, absolutely. But it can still play in with those nodes. So there is a little, this is how it works in astrology. There's a little Neptune in those nodes. Those nodes are spread a little bit to our emotional security. Therefore, even though they're not directly affected, okay? Now, so I'm getting a little weird here. So as we just get back to this square, that's an issue. The other thing that is a square that we want to look at before I start throwing more complications on here is the square of Mars to Pluto. That means that a lot of our actions are causing transformation. That's not necessarily good. That's not necessarily bad. Remember that our actions are determined by us individually, and that actions themselves are not the brain work. They're not the intention. That comes from something else. And realize that anger, which would be the closest thing associated with it as a pure form, can also have a very transforming effect. Okay? So that is something worth looking at. The big deal that leads me into so much more is, and it's the beginning of a whole other picture. So let me get into, I had to clear that up to get into the next one, is this one. Okay, so here we have 817. Here we have 732. And just those two right there is called anxiety. It brings so much anxiety into the skies. People, it is normal right now for you to feel anxious, even if you don't feel that you have a reason to have anxiety. Nope, it's in the skies. It's everywhere. It's every structure that's breaking down. And the interesting thing, and I'll pull that up, is it's breaking down because of Hades at 8 degrees. So I'm gonna pull Hades into that, which, is just a whole other factor. But let's see how important this is. Look at that. Yes, I know that if you're a beginner astrologer, you're probably saying to yourself, I see that, the picture, I see the design that it's making here. I see the geography, but I don't understand how Virgo and Pisces have anything to do with Aquarius and Taurus. I can see where Taurus has to do with, well, it's called an inconjunct. And what it does is really presents a lot of opportunity. It presents opportunity for anxiety. It really does. It truly, truly does. It's really interesting, all of this. Now, there's some really positive aspects here. Like, okay, let me just point this out. How about Mercury to the nodes in a beautiful sextile? That is us taking opportunity. Oh, and trine, sextile and trine. That's us taking opportunity. That's the ease by which we're still able to communicate. We might be very frustrated by what's going on, but we are still able to communicate. We're still able to get connections together. It may be tough, but we're able to do that. And that really bodes well. Now, it doesn't bode well for nervousness and anxiety, because I do believe that our minds are on overtime, which is why I am hopeful that the Saturn to Mercury does stabilize our thinking. Okay, that somehow it limits us to going into those really dark places, that it causes us to really look at that. That is a hope that I have. But all of that 8 degree, and I'm going to use 8 degree. I know that it's 732, but honestly, all that 8 degree energy they are in a big conversation. They're in a big powwow. Okay, so they definitely have a lot to do with each other. So some of the struggles that we're going through internally have a lot to do with that anxiety, or our mind going into places that are probably not good for us. And, we are really thinking about things like the struggles with privacy versus security. There are a lot of things going on, not just because of the virus, but because the virus has literally made it very clear what hasn't been working. Okay? And that's all of us in our personal lives as well. Maybe we were not valuing the right things in life. Okay? Maybe we weren't taking advantage of the right things. And now we're angry. Maybe we're angry in this area, okay, in DC, because we feel like our self-expression is being affected. And it comes to this Pluto. But ultimately, Pluto here in the first house is saying, but you're the one that's going to transform. Everything is going to transform. So it's just a wonderful little read there. Okay, so I want to build because I have a lot more I'd like to look at. So those were, in my opinion, the more outstanding, move my tea, they were the more outstanding notes that showed up. I do want to go to next is I want to pull in the next part of this, and I still want to stay with Janice because I want us to be able to see this stuff separately, and I can do it better in this program. Okay. So I just now it looks a little different, doesn't it? Now we've got a ton more here. So we have this totally different thing going on now. And it also brings up more stuff, if you will, okay? Like we're hearing a lot about authority figures. Let me get a pen on this because we could use it. Okay. So we're hearing a lot more. There's a lot more thinking about authority figures, about becoming authority figures. Okay? With that. A little bit less than a degree, too. I mean, they're really an aspect. And so it's also, it's an inconjunct, it's an opportunity, but it's also about making a statement. How do I make a statement between Kronos and Mercury? Kronos is credibility. Mercury is your thinking. You want to have credible thinking, okay? But it's also news about authority figures. So these could be rumors about bosses, rumors about parents, concerns about parents. So this could be talking and speaking directly to our Mercury. But I really wanted to get to was my friend Hades. And we always talk about how these two are running together and how ugly that can be right now. Bad authority figures, boy, and we do seem to have lots of them. Everybody does. This seems like right now the authority figures just really need to be questioned. So the Hades is look at 8 degrees again. We have so much at 8 degrees. We have that. We have that. Okay? So we have all of this stuff at 8 degrees. And now we have anxiety already. And now we throw Hades in there. Yeah, I think our anxiety is going to increase because I really do feel like there are some issues, and people have issues with making mistakes. I myself am very concerned. I don't want to make any mistakes. Okay, especially I'm trying to teach here. I don't want to make any mistakes. But I think that, and I'm doing a lot of private charts and private readings. And I do think that there's a real anxiety about mistakes right now. No one wants to make them. And when anxiety is already high and you've got Hades thrown in there, it's a no-brainer. Now, the beauty is that some of us, myself included, I do love doing research, and I'll just go study. And that's what I've been doing. And for some of it, you all have been benefiting. So there you have it. Now, so we have all this 8, and we have this 8, and this 8, and we have this 8, okay? And look, this is like a major conversation of 8s going on, okay? And we have to think about what a struggle that is and how much anxiety we have. Okay, now we throw in some of what, again, is a little bit still an aspect. Let's throw in that Mercury, and let's throw in that Kronos. And what we're thinking a lot about is our own credibility. We don't want to make mistakes because it affects our credibility. And that's the most personal level I can put this chart on. And that wouldn't matter where you lived. Okay? But I do believe that, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, that as I get to the next thing here, which is, first of all, I do want to point out that, and this is going to show up again with asteroids, but there's a lot going on here, which is exponentially making things worse. In this chart in particularly, it's very hard. I'm looking at Washington, D.C., because that Apollon directly squares that ascendant and Cupido. So there is a tremendous amount going on in any one family, in any one group, in any one building. Okay? And that's going to be true even if you don't have that ascendant. It's a little easier to read because it is related to the ascendant. Just like it's easier to read about mistakes being made by those in charge here, because this Hades and this Kronos are still in aspect to that descendant or to the ascendant itself. So this really, I mean, and there is a cabinet thing going on, and they are vetting, and that also relates to people's past, their credibility, and that is on the descendant. So it makes a lot of sense. Will a lot of it be bipartisan? Probably not. Probably very partisan because of the Cupido. Okay? So that's just, again, I'm not doing a political, but that was an easy read. I just want to point out that when you're dealing with so many, and then you could apply that 4 degrees because this is a big slow mover. It's not only on Cupido that there is an aspect, but it really is still an aspect to Saturn and many of our other friends that are at 8 degrees. Now, because it's 4 degrees away, I would limit this one to the actual squares, which would still be Saturn and Uranus, which means anxiety because there is more than one, or because of business, or because of lack of business, as it is retrograde. So there, again, it really is very spot on in many ways that you can break this up. So that's, you know, I'm just wanting to make sure I got through everything on here. I did go through the square. I'm looking at my notes right now, so bear with me here because I'm going to go right on and into the asteroids next. We have a real interesting configuration of asteroids. You know, it's interesting, you know, the chart ruler of Washington, this chart, is Saturn, and it's in the first house. So it bodes well for us having a lot of access. It also refers to the fact that that government is in transformation, which it is, which is very accurate. And it's there's a lot with Saturn, which I'm going to get to in a minute, that also fits because as it relates to Saturn on the dial. So there's a whole conversation here with Saturn that I'm going to look at right away because it's really interesting. It relates to memories of the past and how the memories have a difficult effect. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I see that in some of the cabinet hearings where they're using somebody's tweets against them. By the same token, Merrick Garland has used the past as a way to make a point. I really believe that you're going to see a lot of karma related to the past. That means past criminal cases, which you're also seeing in the headlines as well. So the past, and this could also have to do with the past, meaning the insurrection, because that has also come up. So that's a lot playing on that Saturn. It's right in the dial. So this is another 8-degree factor, but it's not 8 degrees. It's 8 degrees of Aquarius, which means 8 degrees of fixed. So it is playing in with both. It's playing in with this square, for sure. Beyond that, I'd have to do a lot of research to figure where they are, but on the dial, they all are playing ball together. And I'll just take a moment to show you that. Okay, so here's the dial, and I'm just going to go right to Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius at 8 degrees, 17 minutes, okay? Just to give you a real brief, because some of it you can see on this one. So we're right in here. Okay, it's 17 minutes. I do have it. Yeah, okay. So I want to go forward. And I'm doing this so you can see the dial more, okay? Now, what I did here, and it's hard for you to see, is I picked up the asteroids that also fell on this point, okay? Those asteroids are two. There's Hubris, which is the karma itself, and there is, oh, I see what I did. They're running all together in Aquarius. They are all here, which means, let me go back. They're all here. That's why I thought it was so interesting. All of them are 8 degrees of Aquarius. Memoria, Hubris, and Mezzanine. And one of the things I want to point out is those are memory asteroids running with karma. I have a saying that I like to say about our country. Sometimes I think they have a very short memory. I think we're going to find out that maybe there's some karma due, and we're going to be remembering some things that, you know, are related to Saturn is, you know, calling you to learn your lesson. So be really interesting. I did want to put that, it was in my notes. I had to do that. Now let's go back to this because I'm running on, and I did want to get to, I already talked about that. Here I go. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to do it right here now, is two things actually. One, I'm going to show you from this chart because I think it's better. Okay. Here we have a 3 degree, 53 minute ascendant. And down here we have a 4 degree of a Cupido A, which is a mask. It's your face. So I look at that as our mask right now, asteroid. That's what I've been following on masks. And I'm seeing issues with masks. And I'm seeing issues with masks that is also going into that. Here we go with that 4 degree. Hopefully you're following this. This is there's more in this chart, harder to see. But it's right there, 4 degrees of Scorpio. And then you go to 4 degrees of Aries. That once again creates another in conjunction. So, or semi-sesquiquadrat, which I can't even hardly say the word, but it doesn't matter. It is an aspect. And as you look at that, and the ascendant's pulled in here, it does play a role in DC, where there is now an official federal mandate for wearing masks. The other thing about it is that everything in the astrology tells you that masks are the best, if you want to live the most normal, that you would be masked up. That's what it says. I don't care what the CDC says. I tell you that's what astrology says. So isn't it interesting? They really think that that's what is really good for us. So let's get to this dial work, all right, where I have more notes. And the first thing I want to look at is, you know, I'm going to talk about this chart in the axis form, okay? And I don't know why I was looking here. So I'm going to go back because I have to go backwards. Why I was here. Oh, the nodes. There's a lot of pressure. And again, you could be slightly off with this, but look at that Vesta node. That's like social distancing. And how there's a lot of pressure because Icarus is, remember we had the nodes squaring the Neptune, and I showed you that, like one of the first things. And then I don't know if it was this video or another, but there's repeatable themes in astrology. That's a repeatable theme. It's telling us there's a lot of gloom and doom because of the social distancing, or concerns about privacy issues because everything being remote. But it goes across to Icarus, where there's a lot of pressure and people are taking risks. So there's a lot of pressure either to take risks because of these concerns. And it may have to do with making goals because it's Vesta, but Vesta is also about distancing and how that plays in and how there's pressure to that. So I thought that was really great. So when I see some good astrology, I have to point it out. The reason I wanted to come on, though, is to, of course, discuss, and I'm going to do it by the axis of the sun today. So sometimes I do the Aries point. Today we're going to look at the sun, and we're going to look at what the axis points are. So right now you're looking at a whole list of midpoints coming off of the sun moon. Okay, and the list goes on and on and on. And you do see Venus there, Venus in the nodes. And I do think that there's some compassion and kindness also because even though it's 6 degrees away from the sun, it's still in the same sign as the sun. They're both coming in from Pisces. They're both resting together, if you will, whatever house. And I think that that does aid or add to the circumstance. So the other axis that I want to look at, oh, and I also want to point out some of the things here like Demeter and being on your own. This is like people having to even eat on their own or take care of themselves or go it alone, and it refers to the health issue. It's sort of moving up toward that ascendant. But again, a lot of astrologers might read that all together. How all of that, being alone, this health thing, and this, especially restaurants, okay, because of food business or food, but I think it's even food, okay, that things are, that there may be some food, I don't want to say food issues. I mean, I don't think that there's like a food production issue, but who knows? I mean, I'm not going to say that, I mean, but maybe certain foods are harder to get, like, we have such variety, maybe it's just not as easy. I think here we're talking about parents. I think people are worried about their parents being on their own. I think kids even being on their own. Nemesis is what's going on right now. Okay? And also, Jupiter is in this axis. I'm going to go right to it. Jupiter is in the axis, and Jupiter also has its own midpoints. But Jupiter, it could be because somebody's away, traveling, Jupiter, expansion, things are healing, kids at school. That all relates to Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter's down there right now at 16 degrees of Aquarius. All right. The other thing I want to point out, and that's interesting because that's right off of the Aries point, but if you go between Poseidon and Jupiter, it just is like there's a lot of, you really be wary of what you're listening to, okay? Some of it, I think there's just going to be a lot of news. And this would be for anybody, okay? Or aha moments in education, but I think it's more related to the world. So I think we may be learning some things coming up, okay, through the media, through Poseidon, through education. And I believe that it expands us and it makes us feel more positive. So, and I believe that is everybody, because the midpoint of those two factors is the Aries point. So really good stuff there. Again, we have issues with Kronos a lot. And I've talked about that. It's running with Hades. We don't always trust our officials. The officials are getting caught all over the place. And I do believe that when you're looking at the media, okay, that not everything we're hearing right now is what it appears, okay? I think we get to the bottom of it. I think we're in an age where the truth is always going to shine out. I'm really happy to say that. But I do say be wary of what you're hearing. That's an Aries point. That's not just this chart. That's really key. So the Jupiter, though, does bring in the midpoint. It's actually 27. So Jupiter is in there. The point I'm trying to get to is slightly past. Yeah, the Sun-Moon axis, slightly past. Yeah, slightly past. So, yeah, the fixed point is literally only 20 minutes from, I believe, where Jupiter is. And I'll say for us, here we go. Jupiter's at 16, 13 Aquarius, okay? And up to about 1530, it would be considered in the Aries point itself. But what causes that, here we go again, is that midpoint with Poseidon at 14 of Scorpio. See how they square each other? Can you believe everything you hear? But some of it is true. So now what do? Check your news sources. That would be my answer. Now, I did a little where I went through and I talked about some of what I saw. Now, I did that with Uranus, but it was easy because I took it right from this chart. The masks were easy. They're up here because I took it from this chart. But there are so many asteroids that are not on the chart that I'm going to give a little what I like to refer to as a mini chart reading. So slightly past, and this should be, I believe I didn't do good math here. Okay, so I am going to check my math. Okay, I apologize. I had to do some math, and I don't want you to have to wait for my math and then check it. So basically, we're looking at 857 mutable, 2357 cardinal, 127 cardinal, and 1627 cardinal. And the way this works is we pick up the asteroids that are within a degree of that math. Okay, so for example, when I start in Aries, the very first thing I see here is Crone for an asteroid that represents authority figures, and how another asteroid, which to me means that things are sort of backwards, okay, or not being done correctly, okay? That not being done correctly is sort of out a little. No, actually it's not. No, it's not. It's in. It's definitely in. So authorities that maybe did not do things correctly. The taking care of yourself, I already talked about, and in a health issue has already been mentioned. That's what we looked at over here, okay, where your Demeter having to go it on your own. So I did talk a little bit about that. The truth comes up in this one, and it's very important. So as we can continue to look at all the factors and how they kind of relate to each other, and remember, all the stuff that we said in the beginning still plays a factor in all of this. which means Uranus is still going to play a factor in the sun moon. Let me put my pen on. So the factor, all of the 8-degree factors that have already been discussed, even though they're now in different places, are still factors, okay? I'm just kind of grabbing everything. It's real, the way astrology works, and Saturn, it's interesting. Oh, actually, everything's right here. That's hard on a dial because there's so much. But it's really interesting how all of those 8 degrees are still going to play into this axis, okay? Because I showed you on the other chart. So even though we're not seeing that on a dial, look, it's way up here. It's not in the axis. It still plays in by way of aspect, as we discussed in the first chart. So what I'm looking at here are just the asteroids that are now applicable. And, you know, one of the asteroids that comes into the axis now, so these still play a role. I really don't want to rule them out. I just want to say that right now we're focusing on something different, okay? So I want to start over here again, because I wanted you to know that even though we're doing a sun-moon axis on this dial, that the stuff we already previously talked about is still going to be in play, okay? Now, continuing with my asteroids, I hate jumping around so much, is that I do want to talk about all of the things that still are in effect here. And one of the asteroids that I had talked about was Truth. Okay, so Truth now is a factor that also is going to play into everything. So that's kind of cool when you see all of the stuff that we saw with Saturn and Mercury, and we see and we saw that Hades and the Chronos and all of that. It's really good to know that in there is Truth. Okay, so I want to pick up where I left off. Okay, now moving on, and Truth is just coming in, actually. It's just like barely in there. So as I go on and I read, that's fixed, I go on to, excuse me, I'm losing myself here, is, well, animals. But it's also that idea of hunter-prey. So either we're going to be noticing more animals, it is spring, you know, or maybe because we're so anxious that we're spending more time with our pets. I highly recommend that, by the way. Nothing like a pet to help bring your blood pressure down. I know, I take experience from that. So then we move on to, as we talked about, being alone or being on your own, how at times people will even, you know, scare other people away. I like that. I'm going to use that. Okay, because of the other asteroid that falls with that. It's almost as though, in a way, and this comes up as well, we're doing makeovers of our lives. All of us are, on some level, doing makeovers. I have clients with new relationships, clients with new homes, clients with new jobs. I think that it is about that makeover, and we're reflecting on the makeover and how we can proceed with that as we proceed. Okay. Icarus says that we're going to take some risks, but we're feeling pressured to take risks. Remember, we talked about Vulcanus is running with that, okay, that spot. And there is this sense of pressure that is applied. Okay. Let's see, what else do I want to bring up here? I want to make sure I got everything that I had written down. The nighttime, the evening hours for some people will be another factor. Let me come back here. It's like I want to do things 3 times. So when I go through the asteroids, and I showed the axis point where they were, I'm only looking at the cross. I'm not looking, like I said, even though the rest of those planets will have an effect on that day, it's a way of taking a microscope to a certain aspect of the chart. And that's where you start finding your repeat themes, which is when you switch from one technique to another, or one way of looking at a chart from another technique, I think can be really enlightening, actually. And you gain a lot of detail that way. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank everybody for allowing me into their life. And I want to, as always, thank you for watching and wishing you happy readings.